Welcome to the 46th Meetup of the Hawaii iOS Developer Meetup. Quote of the week is from Leo, who will be presenting today. So Leo, do you want to read out your quote? I can read it out.
All right. Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle.
And what does that mean to you? What's the significance of that?
So I think whenever I finish like a coding project, there's always that brief moment of like, oh my God, it's done. Like, this is so great. Like, I feel so good. And then I realize that, oh wait, no. And like by the next day already, I'm like, oh, there's this other project I'm gonna do. So it always feels like princess is in another castle.
Right. Nice. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. We've got upcoming meetups, so we're taking a break next week on the 23rd, Thanksgiving, picking back up on November 30th with generics. Shane might be helping out with that one. On December 7th, we'll be going over the Sudoku puzzle solver. And maybe if anyone has preferences on if we do the AR one or the brute force one, just message me. And then finally, no meetups until January 6th because I will be on vacation. All right, so the pro tip this week is not Xcode related, this is more app related, and this is a find that my buddy told me about, and I'm so excited about putting this into my projects. It's called Instabug. It's free for a single developer, and if a user finds a bug in your app, they're probably not going to report it back to you. They're probably going to forget about it, all this kind of stuff. And the reason is because they can't report it from within the app. With Instabug, you can. So I'm just going to head over to Instabug. First I'll show it in function. So this is how it works. You've got an app, maybe it's missing the follower account. So now this person can actually take a screenshot, draw on it, actually do an annotation, and in the newest version, they can also record an audio snippet to say what the bug is. And this is all within the app. The way that you trigger it by default is you shake the phone, and it brings up this. So it sends it over, and then it's saved.
Cool.
So fantastic. I'm going to be using it in all my apps, and I wanted to share it.
How does it work?
I was using that really old school UI.
Yeah.
Like
the reason I'm showing this one is it's the only video I could find online of it functioning. So, but I'll go to the Instabug website and then we can check it out.
It's like iOS 6.
Yeah.
So this is it. How it works, Jay? You wanted to see this? It's really easy to integrate with CocoaPods. You put just a reference to Instabug in your app delegate to finish launching. So shake your phone. Then you've got all this bug report console background. And then it also has a stack trace. So you can reproduce your errors.
Right.
And then that what everyone's curious about is pricing. So head up to pricing. We've got really lots of tiered pricing. So I'm going to stick with this one. It's just in-app screenshot attachment. It's just me, so it should work for the project I'm working on right now. But they have all these other options too.
Is this something that you're thinking about using just while you're doing like beta tests?
Yeah.
Within test flight?
Yeah.
I did read up on it that you can keep this integrated in your app when you launch it, when it is released. It's totally fine. It'll be approved by Apple.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, maybe I'll use it in the future, but right now I just want to use it for test flight.
Yeah. That's cool.
You're going to have 10 beta testers, like most of them I don't even know, so I don't expect them to be like, hey, with an email. So this is going to be the source for me. So that's, I wanted to share that. Okay, so bottom line, using Instabug, don't force users to leave the app to report a bug. Into housekeeping, it's Hawaii iOS Developer Meetup. We've got a meetup page. A member of HICapacity, if you're interested in becoming a member, go to HICapacity.org. Bathroom here is to the left. And finally, we have a Hawaii iOS Slack channel. If you're interested in becoming a member of that, give me an email. I'm using Spectacle app for window management. And tonight's agenda is going to be, how do you pronounce this today? Nengo Convert with Leo Tsuchiya. Before we get into that, how about let's do introductions? Does anyone want to go first? Shay.
Okay. Hi, Jay. I'm been a developer for 5-6 years, working starting an Objective C to Swift. And my current project is EcoCube. It's about, the first beta is pretty much done. I fixed a few bugs, about to submit. Computer crashed and burned, so I gotta get a new one. Another fortification of sorts. It happens. Like gotta hold on. Roll with the punches, as they say.
Yep. Yes, you
Of course. We were the best.
I feel not stuck with anything this week. Pretty much most of my weekend was going through Siege and doing some homework for that. Memory management, stack versus speed. And I find it interesting. I found a couple videos over Realm Academy. I haven't had time to watch them yet. Talking about memory and with Swift and how it looks and how Swift manages memory and how it allocates variable and how it allocates memory in the stack. So I kind of want to link kind of like the information that I'm learning with C and how that works in Swift. And I just this week I just started doing one of the Ray Wenderling's apps that for the store search. So I can learn JSON and I can learn like HTTP and how to like communicate online.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's working through that tutorial this week.
Which tutorial?
So it's one of the books from Ray Wenderling.
Oh,
iOS Apprentice is their fourth exercise.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Leo. I'm not stuck on anything right now. I'm still kind of on the design/idea phase. The next project that I want to work on is AR kind of puzzle game. I have kind of base idea, but I kind of want to flesh it out a little bit more before I actually sit down and start writing code.
Super good. My name is David from Hawaii. Currently working on a bar finder app. Right now I'm stuck on an error I'm getting with a UI PNG representation, converting a valid PNG image into something that can be storeable to the documents directory. So any help that you guys could offer after this would be very helpful. Recent win is just having a lot of free time now. I've just been programming for like 5 or 6 hours a night, just kind of burnt out. And besides, I just have so much free time.
Okay.
Interested in, besides programming computers, I've got some nice arugula growing in my garden. I'm pretty stoked on that.
Nice.
And yeah, I think that's it.
Hey, Brett.
I got my sourdough starter. It's just chilling in the refrigerator right now. I gotta get them into some flour.
Souring up?
Souring, it's plenty sour already. So sour. I got home one day and it just like opened the door. I keep all the windows closed.
Oh man!
I got it. And I was like, oh! So I covered it up, put it in the freezer or the refrigerator for now. Yeah, so that's it. All right, so that was the agenda, and so Leo, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll switch over. Let me know if you need anything. Okay.
Is there a way to move that screen into the middle somehow? Maybe that'd be.
You want to?
Alright, please.
Okay.
I'll just record that. Okay. Yeah.
Just I'll leave this.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Alright guys, so today I just want to do like a rundown of app that I recently rewrote. Originally it was in Objective-C, did a complete rewrite in Swift. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what the app does. So let me show it to you real quick here. So basically, what this app does is it converts from the Japanese era system, the Japanese calendar, to the Gregorian calendar. So just I don't want this to be a history lesson, but just briefly, every time there's a new emperor in Japan, there'll be a new Japanese era, and that's how they'll mark each individual year. For the most part, in Japan, people use the Gregorian calendar, but in certain things like if you go to City Hall, you do some official documents, or if you have like a Japanese driver's license, they're going to use the Japanese era system. And the reason why I made this app actually was, this was about 5 or 6 years ago. I was working in a restaurant, and we had to ID Japanese tourists, and all they had was their Japanese ID, and it would say things like Showa 52, and I'd be like, I don't know how old you are, and I just have to take them at their word if they were old enough to drink or not. So I made this app to be able to convert that. So let me show it to you real quick. Basically, we can convert from the Japanese eras into Gregorian years here. So for example, Showa, let's say 8. Showa 8 is 1933. This one is obviously backwards, right, from Gregorian years. So let's say, for example, I was born in 1984. So I was born in Showa 59. Okay. And this uses a page view controller here to kind of just swipe through things here. I kind of have like a base view controller here. Really, it's just to change the background and look at the background. It really doesn't add any functionality. It's just something that
Aesthetics.
I wanted to make a custom UI element and just play around with it, so I put that in. Plus, I had pictures that I wanted to use. Okay, so that's the app. So let's look at it. Quick, I guess, technical overview. So first of all, I don't have a storyboard. So let me just show you right here. There is no storyboard. Okay. Really, I would say you should use a storyboard, and if I were to make this again, I would use a storyboard. The reason I didn't use a storyboard was just to try it. Also, B, some of the companies that I've been interviewing at told me explicitly that they don't use storyboards, and they asked me to code with the fact in mind that we're not going to use storyboards. So I kind of felt like maybe I should just try it out and just get a feel for it. But again, if I were doing my own project, I would use the storyboard. I think the only real compelling pro that I've heard of not using storyboards is that if you're going to use some sort of repository, having multiple people work on a storyboard can get messed up. So that could be maybe the only pro for not using a storyboard. If you have a large team working on one storyboard, things might get messy.
That's why that was one of the big issues in the early days of storyboards. Now these days, with the notion of storyboard references, you can break these things to little pieces so that each team could work on each individual piece without.
Right. Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. That's a good point. So.
Especially when you have when you're using a large app, and like I think you may have seen one of my components were so complex that that I used a storyboard just to prototype, because they're consists of so many components. You can do that programmatically. It would take not only be time consuming but error prone.
Right. Yeah. I guess another small pro for not using a storyboard is sometimes that there are so many elements within one view controller that there could be slowdown, but also there can be overlapping embedded elements, and it might actually become more time consuming to try to pick out which element goes where and change the constraints that way rather than doing it programmatically.
But also, if you're like my components, it is so intricate already that either way, using storyboard or programmatically is a pain because there's just so many components, like the layouts. I really don't want to do that programmatically because to do that, and plus, and the code to cap all those values was already messy enough. So if I had to also deal with the UI code, debugging would be messy. In this case, there's a pro, especially if you're doing complex layouts. When you don't know, you can't visualize it, programming it would be very difficult and very error prone. So there are advantages, and my code for that particular part was so complex that doing it either by storyboard or programmatically would have been messy. A little less messy with storyboards, extremely messy with programmatically.
Yeah,
so either way.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here because actually I myself would say use a storyboard, and I would use a storyboard.
Yes, so it really depends on what you're working on. For most simple stuff, you can get away without using it, but if you're doing something really complex and you want to see what's going on, highly recommend it. But also, and just learn new techniques how to do things piecemeal too. So it really depends.
Okay, and onto B here. So let me show you briefly. So there's a base view controller with the custom tab bar at the top. And inside this base view controller, there is a container view that kind of goes from here down, right? And within this container view is a page view controller, which allows you to move through these different view controllers here without changing anything to do with either the background or this top, custom tab controller, right? So you can kind of see the possibilities of making a UI where you want something that's going to stay there forever at the top, but you want content to change at the bottom. You could employ something like this.
Can you go a bit more to the page view controller? Is it an object that you can just pretty much drag and grab, or sort of like preset, like a class?
Yeah, I think it's called a UI page controller, and I'll definitely go into it. Yeah, I will definitely go into that one. Okay, so yeah, the container view in the base view controller has a page view controller. Each page here has a custom view that I call the main panel. And then within that, for example, here's a UI picker view, and then this is a custom view with a bunch of labels here, which allows me to kind of change individual parts of the text. And lastly, the UI picker view, I use a data manager that I wrote up to get the data sources from a JSON file. Okay, so that's kind of just the overview, and then we'll go into in-depth look at each one here. So I'm not necessarily going to cover everything. If everybody knows how to do it, I'll just skip over it, and I don't necessarily have to go through each thing to go to the end as well. So first of all, if you are interested in not using a storyboard and you want to try it out, first what you want to do is you want to go to your app delegate here. Okay, and within the did finish launching with options function, what you're going to do is you're going to get the window. You're going to set it to the size of the device here by using getting the main bounds, UI screen.main.bounds. Then you're going to get your base view controller. This is your initial view controller. You're going to create an instance. Then you're going to set the root view controller of the window, the base view controller, make key invisible, and then return true.
This key invisible mean?
So that just basically shows it.
Okay.
Yeah, it just shows the window. It's just saying that this window is going to be the primary view on the screen. So, for example, if we didn't do this, I think it would just show a black screen here. Let's do it out. So it's just telling it to show it basically. Yeah. Okay. So that was how to not use a storyboard. Oh, okay. That was okay. Add the code. Okay, you have to add the code. You have to go into your project, deployment information, and usually you'll have a main interface here, and it'll say main, and that's just telling it to use the main storyboard as the main interface. But obviously we don't have a storyboard, so you have to just delete that, leave it blank. If you do write something in there, it'll crash. So you just remember to take that out.
If you say main, but if you don't have it, well,
Yeah.
it'll crash, obviously.
And then lastly, just delete the storyboards.
Of course.
Okay. Next, let's look at the base view controller here a little bit. Make this bigger so you guys can. So basically, I have in the base view controller a custom tab bar at the top here, and then I have a container view on the bottom section, and that's going to be the page view controller embedded in there. So let's look at that real quick. So our base view controller is the main view controller here. Okay, and we have the custom top bar. We can look at that later. This is just initializing the top bar. Here, just initialization code. Then we're going to create a container view. Oh, question?
Because the custom top bar, is that a custom class that you created?
Yeah, that is a
based
custom
on like a UI tab?
No, it's a custom class that I created based on a UI view.
Based on UI view, okay.
Yeah. So we can look at that right after this. So I have the custom top bar at the top here. I have a view basically it's the UI view here. And I'm going to set the frame here to underneath the top bar. Then I'm going to make a view controller here, right? Custom page view controller. And we're going to add that in. We're going to add that into the view here. Okay, so basically two things. We have the custom view at the top and the container view at the bottom. Okay. So let's look at the custom view bar real quick here. Basically, there's a few things that it has. There's these right side and left side items, which correspond to the left side item here and the right side item here. There are an array of buttons. Yeah. And that corresponds to these buttons here. Okay. And then I created a delegate for this. So the view controller that we have the custom bar in can handle the button presses, right? Because I don't necessarily want this class to handle the button presses, because even if I press a button in here, you know, it doesn't know what to do with that logic. So I have a delegate, and we'll set the view controller as the delegate, so the view controller knows what to do when a button is pressed. Am I going too fast, or are we good so far?
Perfect, that was good.
Okay. Okay, so I have the initialization here. I tried to make this as reusable as possible. So if I wanted to make another app that wanted to use this code, or if somebody else wanted to use this code, basically they could just put in what type of offsets they want, how many buttons they want, what images they want for their icon, and that's it. And you should have your own custom bar. So I tried to make that as easy as possible here. We also have a colors array here because that sets the color gradient for the top bar. So tried to make everything kind of as easy as possible. All right. So I guess we'll start off here. This is kind of the only part that gets a little messy. Create layer path is going to create this path here. You can see that it's not a straight line, obviously. So we have to use or I'm using a Bezier path here. So the first thing we want to do is, based upon the number of icons, based upon how high it's specified, based upon how much of an offset you want, it's going to create that little tab on the custom bar. So let's look at that code real quick. Create layer path here. So again, based on the number of icons, the height, and whatnot, it's just basically math here. And how it works is basically you're just like it's kind of like connect the dots basically. So you're having a point here, connected to a point here, connected to a point here. Now from this point to the next point, we're going to have a curve. So we're going to add a quadratic curve. Right? You can see this is the curve math here. We're going to add a curve to the next point, another curve. Next point. So we're just like cutting it out by like a connect the dots kind of thing.
So this, just so I got it straight, you're making the entire view, you're laying out the path for it, not just the Bezier.
Right.
Okay.
Right, for the entire view. So if we look at it up close, there's going to be a point here, a point here, a point here, a point here, 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 here. So I think that's about, what is that, 8 points. So let's see. Yeah, it should be about 8 or so points altogether. So it's just connected dots basically. Yeah, I'm not an expert at quadratic curves or anything like that, so I can't really speak upon that. But if you just mess with it, you'll figure it out. It's just one of those kind of things. Yeah. Okay. So that creates the layer path. Then we set the gradient colors. We're going to create left and right views so that whoever uses this custom top bar can just type in like set left view to this without having to actually specify a left or right view, just to make it easier to use. Right, so we have the left and right views. So this is kind of just a check. It needs to make sure that there's at least one icon, or it's going to throw out a fatal error, because there's really no point in using this if there's no icon. It's just going to mess up the math as well. Okay. So this is just more kind of UI math to put out the buttons. Right, and this is just a for loop here. It's going to go through all of the icons in that icon array. And for each icon in that icon array, it's going to calculate, it's more UI math, calculate the position, put the icon there, it's going to set the image, and it's going to set a tag here. This tag is important because that's how we know what button it is. And that's
just a quick question.
Yeah.
So tags, can you apply them to any just buttons? What else can you apply it to? Views?
I believe you can add tags to any UI element.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Enough.
Yep. Use tags to any UI element.
Yeah.
So based on the index of the icon, we're going to set it as a tag. And that's important because within the delegate here, whenever you press a button, it's gonna send the index of the tag.
Yeah.
Or I mean, it's gonna send the tag of that button. So
Yeah.
the first icon would be 0, next would be 1, next would be 2, next would be 3.
Yeah.
And that's how we know which button has been pressed.
Exactly. That's a technique I've been using a lot in the app because like with the calendar part, it basically said you do it programmatically or the interface builder set each button to its tag. Some of the computations I have to do is based on what buttons I use with the what tags. Like, but you gotta be careful that you set your tag either programmatically or correctly, otherwise.
Yeah, so I think anytime you make UI elements programmatically, it's very hard to kind of specify which element is which is why you want to use a tag. So like, let's say if you programmatically make, I'm going to make 5 or 10 buttons. How do we know which button is which? Usually you would just use, going through an array, you have an index, you set that as a tag, so we know which button is which, right? Otherwise, there's no real way of knowing which buttons have been made
So
programmatically.
basically, every time you create these elements, you always put a tag. You set up like an index, like increment each time.
Yeah.
And yeah, you gotta be careful. Sometimes I had to fix a lot of UI bugs because I forgot to set my tags improperly or made them all zeros.
Yeah, so
Little stuff like that.
like you can even tag things in the storyboard.
Yeah.
You can set the tags, but I kind of feel like that's unnecessary because you could just create a storyboard reference and you wouldn't need to know the tag to know the object.
Yeah.
So to me, it seems like the basic application of tagging an element is if you're going to create it programmatically, where it's actually not on the storyboard until it actually runs.
Yeah. But even in storyboards, like some of the elements, I have so many buttons that I start putting tags on it to indicate which button or label I address.
I mean, I
It
guess
really depends on what you're going to.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Yeah.
How do you keep your tags like ordered? Like how do you, like if you're up to 200 tags, say, how do you keep those tags like separated? Do you create a function that like outputs the next number, or how do you?
So
Basically, just hard code it.
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but
Okay.
but I'll just show you real quick here. So I mean, basically, I'm running through all of the icons, right? We had an icon
okay.
array,
Right.
right? So let's say we wanted to have, okay, I'll show you right here. So in this one, basically, the icon array has 2 icons.
Right.
Let's say if it had 5 or 10, it would just run through that array
Yeah.
and set an index.
Okay,
Exactly.
grabbing the index
Exactly.
of the items in the array to create the tag.
So in this example here, this eyeball thing would be 0, and then this refresh thing would be
Exactly.
1.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Then it would be 2, 3,
2,
4,
3,
5.
4. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, as I say,
Yeah.
using the index as a tag just for convenience, because you're doing inside the for loop. Like you say, if you wanted to, you can differentiate it with like like an enum or string, something like that. So I imagine like if you have, I don't know, kind of like example that Dave said, if you have like 200 buttons, you're probably not going to remember which one is button 59. So I imagine like if you want somehow a more degree of control.
Right, right. Yeah, you could definitely do that. But in this case, I wanted this to be as reusable as possible. So like for the next person, I have no idea of what they're going to use it for, or how many buttons they would need. So I'm just referencing it this way. I'm leaving it kind of open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like an array. Yeah.
But yeah, you could definitely make an enum or whatever if you want to make it just to your app, just to fit your app. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I don't know, I guess that's kind of like common. So does the tag property can be set to any type?
The tag property is a int, I believe.
Yes. It's an int?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you cannot set it to a string.
To a string, no.
Okay. But yeah, so what I guess what I was asking, so if you want to give like unique names to like each button, or to the tags of each button.
I believe you could do an int enum,
Like using raw values.
and then
Bro.
you could say like, about button equals 0,
Yeah, exactly.
next button equals 1, back button equals 2, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but you can't set it to a string, I don't think.
Okay, so yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay, cool. So next, let's look at this. This is what actually draws out the shape of the top bar. From this create layer path, basically it just created the connected dots type of frame, but it didn't really do anything with that. So with this code here, first of all, if there is an old gradient layer, we want to remove it just in case we want to update it or change the color midway through our app running. So we're going to remove the old gradient layer. Then we're going to create a new gradient layer. Okay, we're going to set the frame as our custom path dot bounds, right? And remember, our custom path was the path that we created earlier.
The Bezier path.
The Bezier path, right. And then this part is kind of a simple gradient start point, end point, and it has the colors specified. Okay. So then with the path, we're going to create a CA shape layer. Okay, we're going to set that layer as a mask.
What does a mask do? I've seen it before.
So basically, it just cuts out parts of a view.
Cuts them out.
Yeah. Or nullifies them, or
Oh,
however
okay.
you want to
So
think
you
about
get like opacity behind it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah, we're going to use that mask with the shape layer to create that custom path. And we're going to set that as the new gradient layer. And that's kind of how you get this custom shape here. And I don't know if you can tell, but like this part on the left here has a very, very white high opacity, and this side has like a lower opacity. So that's the gradient there. Yeah. Okay. That took a lot of time, so maybe we'll just do the. I guess only you want to kind of see the page view controller. You want to see how that works, or?
Yeah. I mean, always.
Well, I mean, any other questions?
We can discuss, if need to be, we can discuss it afterward if you want to cover.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other questions about the top tab bar part? Kind of okay with that. Okay. So let's go back to the main view controller. This is our base view controller. And remember, we made what was called a custom page view controller. So let's go down here to custom page view controller. Okay, and custom page view controller is just a subclass of the UI page view controller, which is basically what you'd want to use if you want that same kind of scrolling functionality between pages. Also with the, it comes with this page indicator, which is pretty cool too. So it's really easy to use. Okay, so kind of like with most of these like UI elements, you're going to need a data source, and you're going to need a delegate, just like UI table view or a UI picker view or whatever. It's always kind of this same standard structure of having a delegate and a data source. In this case, I just set the data source and delegate to itself, so it's kind of self-contained, all within this one class, just for ease. But you know, if the delegate got to be super complex, or the data source got to be super complex, I would think about moving it into its own class, right? And the way that I set these data source and delegates to itself is just by extending itself as the delegate, right? So in kind of like a smaller project or in a smaller class, this is okay. But you know, if this was like more than like 100 or 200 lines of code, I would start to think about maybe this view controller is becoming too big, and it's hard to understand. Okay, so let's look at it real quick. We set up the data source and delegate, and then we set the background color to clear, because obviously there's that base view controller in back of it, and we don't want to cover that up. We want it to be just transparent, completely transparent. And then we'll set the initial view controller. Okay.
Can I ask a question? I saw you had the sweet blur effect on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Where is that applied?
The blur effect is actually applied here in the, thanks for bringing that up.
Sure.
So, sorry, if we go back to the main view controller, you can actually see that it is the top bar delegate from before, right? It'll respond to the top bar button presses.
Okay.
Right? But also it's this background view controller.
Okay.
So it's actually a subclass of a subclass, which maybe is a little bit hard to understand. Maybe I should think about that structure. But basically, this random background controller is a UI view controller. And let me show you real quick. The functionality of that is that it will did we change this back to the okay.
Did we set in the info? You know, you deleted that initial.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, we somehow broke my code. It's unfortunate. Feeling something's doing here. So you can show make key invisible. Oh, okay. Some whatever reason. Okay, so
You were showing the random image view controller.
oh right. The random image view controller, right? It's just what takes care of this functionality here.
Okay.
Right.
Nice.
So if we look at that, it's just a UI view controller. The background image is a UI image view. The blur effect is this, UI visual effect view, which is actually pretty simple to use. It's just this, right?
Okay.
Yeah, you just initialize it, set the frame, and set the blur effect type. That's it, and put it over another view, right? Over another view. So it's really quite easy. I think the styles here are light, dark, extra light. I don't know if these work prominent. I'm not sure if that works or not, but I'm sure you can just play around with it and figure it out. But they have about 5 different styles of blur.
Cool. Right on. Thanks.
Yeah. And also, I did some sort of an extra gradient blur as well. You can kind of see like the top portion and the bottom portion are a little bit darker than the middle portion, right? If we can use a different color here, you can kind of see it. So you can kind of see how it gets really dark at the bottom here, and a little bit dark at the top. So basically what I did was just created a gradient layer and made the top part a little bit dark, made the middle part not very dark, and made the bottom pretty dark. And put that gradient layer there. So it's a gradient layer, so it's a background image, gradient layer with kind of the shadowing, and then a blur effect layer on top of that.
Just curious, and let me know if you have a lot of stuff. We don't have time for it, but how did you like? Can you just explain just quickly your process of how you like? Was it just visual, like just add an image and then I want to do a gradient?
So I used Sketch, and I kind of went through a whole bunch of different ideas.
Okay.
So you can see here that I had. I mean, this isn't. I deleted a bunch of them, but you can see there's about like 4 or 5. You can see variations of ideas that I was thinking about making here.
This is kind of your process to start in Sketch.
Right.
So you...
Like I kind of like, I'm like, okay, you know, I know I want the image in the back, and should I have like this black overlay here like this, or should I have a blur effect? What kind of text should I have on it? And kind of, you can just see like one of my implementations was making another custom thing here, but that looks kind of like a ball sack, so I thought I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that is my process, just to make a whole bunch and just choose which one I like most.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So that's how I do that. You can also see here that there's a image manager. This is kind of just what takes the background images. Let me just click on that real quick. So basically, I have the background image manager. It's has a singleton instance, and basically it has a array of UI images. So I didn't know you could do it like this, but it's pretty cool that you can just put in images in an array like this and it works. So I was happy at how easy that was. And basically, what you would want, how you would use this is you would call the shared instance of the background image manager, and you just call get background image, and boom, you have your background. So it's very easy to use from within the view controller. All of the lifting, hard lifting, is done back here in the image manager, and I guess that's the type of structure I'm trying to get more into, where the view controller really doesn't have any logic in it. It just has like the commands, do this, do that, but doesn't really say how to do it.
Right.
The how you do it is kind of in a separate class, right? So yeah, so basically it'll get the image, it'll check the a user default key to see if there's a saved image already, saved index, and it'll load that index. So for example, if I had it on this one, I liked the color scheme, I liked blue and green. If I close the app and open it again, it'll just get the same background. That's it.
So, quick question about
Yep.
singletons. So it's like a good use case. So I've read mixed blogs or mixed comments or opinions about using singletons. So say like don't use it, like absolutely don't use it in your app. Other people are like, hey, use it, but it has like a time and a place for using singletons. What is your opinion?
So honestly, I'm not an expert with singletons, and this app itself probably didn't need to use a singleton here, to be honest with you. I just wanted to practice the architecture a little bit.
Right.
But I guess the reasons that you would want to use the singleton is if you have a certain like utility class that's going to be used by many different points in your app, many different view controllers want to use one specific utility class, but you don't necessarily need each view controller to have its own specific instance of this class.
Exactly. You just want one instance for
right, and that right, because for example in this app, you like no matter what page I'm on. Originally I had that. No matter what page I'm on, it's gonna still be just gonna be this one array of images. I don't need multiple arrays of images. I just need this one
you need
Manager.
if you find all the your property, their functionality shared within all of your controllers, yeah, that makes sense to have a singleton.
Right.
It also helps with the memory usage too.
Right.
But just don't, like I said, as O'Neill pointed out, okay, there are cases where singleton pattern does make sense, like in the case when you find yourself repeating functionality or resources within multiple view controllers, then it makes sense to put a singleton. But yeah, don't just put it for the sake of it. That can cause problems.
Right.
I think one more aspect too is that if you want to have a shared resource,
Yeah.
then you do a singleton, because you could have like 2 instances of a resource. Let's say you change the shared resource in one of them. You want to make sure it's reflected in the other one, you know?
Exactly.
So you only have one place where everything is, but I think one of the drawbacks, like people talk about singletons, is like kind of that global state.
It is
That's one of the drawbacks. So
Yes.
you don't want to expose, to everything.
Yeah.
Okay, keep in mind, so basically what you're saying is that, and it makes sense that since it's a global space in the way it is, since all the resources sharing are sharing that same instance,
Yep.
you don't want too many of those,
Yeah.
for one thing.
Yeah.
There's a reason why it's called singleton.
Yeah.
For a reason, because the fact that singleton should only contain resources that are shared within all, and so all the view controllers are objects or classes. If you find yourself have multiple classes using the same resource repeatedly, then use a singleton.
Right.
Just don't make too many of it. You want to minimize the use of singletons. If you can eliminate it, great. But
Right.
sometimes it's not possible. So but you can minimize the use of singletons. Use it only if you find yourself like a protocol thing. You don't have to use it all the time. But if you find yourself repeating, like functionality between view controllers, right, repeatedly, then make that into a protocol.
Right. So
And
it
then-
sounds like you're saying if you notice something being used over and over, sorry Leo, if you notice something being used over and over, then extract it into either a protocol or
A singleton.
a single.
Singletons are for resources, protocols for functionality.
Perfect, that's it right there. That's so explicit right there.
Can you say that again? Singleton for resources.
Right. And protocols, if you find yourself repeating the functionality over and over and over and over and over again.
Okay, and I'm sorry, follow-up question to this.
Yep.
So, I understand with the static, just making it a class property. But what is the point of instantiating inside of the class? Like, and what will be the difference of instantiating outside of the class?
Like within a view controller, you'd say? Or
Not instantiating outside in like the global scope. So, for example, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just calling it a controller.
oh, you mean like
Instead of
like
doing
outside here?
the dot shared, yeah, just instantiating right one. I understand like if you're the sole developer, then you know that's the only class that you use. But I don't know if you're in a team. I guess you don't want more people instantiating the same thing. Does using the static let share does it prevent anybody from
Yes.
instantiating?
It
So-
prevents people from creating another instance of that. That forces it. There's only one of this thing.
Yeah, the let, make sure that once you define it, that's it.
So I cannot create another variable, let's say in another class, let new background image manager
I
equal
think-
background image
I think
manager
you can.
instantiate.
I think you can.
Like with
But this
classes,
should prevent you from being able to do that, to keep it as a single,
Yes.
Let's see.
by definition, single.
yes, exactly. So what you could do,
Let me try that.
see with like classes, you can enforce immutability by putting either a let or private or file private.
Yeah, but that's inside a class, right?
Right.
If
Right.
I'm trying to instantiate it outside of the class, like from another class, we'll use the static let to prevent it. Now using background image manager dot shared or dot static,
I believe you can. It looks like you can. It looks like you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Okay, so it doesn't actually prevent it. It's just more of a again a pattern. So it's known. Hey, if you have a dot shared, do not instantiate this class anymore for like any other classes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think there's a design pattern that for a singleton that disallows you, and I could be thinking of different programming language or some different experience, but it prevents you from instantiating a new instance of that singleton.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of the singleton pattern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm not implementing the singleton pattern correctly here, but I can create like another.
Yeah, what you could do, there's several ways of doing it. One is to create a private, create the initializer to be private.
Oh, there you go. That's a good way.
Because
Let's try that. Yeah.
Because
private or file private.
You're forcing just one instance.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you gotta make the initializers private.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's another way to initialize it. For the initializer, if it finds something already there, it'll just return that. But if it doesn't find something there, it'll create a new one and return that.
Exactly.
So that's why you prevent it from creating a new one. I don't know if I'm
Okay, with the private.
I don't know if it's with
With
private.
access
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because with the static lab, which is what we're talking about, with the static lab, it's not preventing it from
No.
creating a
Right,
new
right.
So you gotta make the initializer private. And then there's so many ways of doing this.
Yeah.
But like once you create it, for a class to be immutable, you have to make its instances private or file private.
If the class immutable, make the instance properties private.
Yeah, or file private,
File private.
depending on what you want.
So Leo, you're gonna try and test it out here?
Yeah. So I'm trying to override the init to be private, but I don't know how to do that. Require. I think it's private with internal.
Did you have other stuff you wanted to cover in the talk?
No, I mean not really. I mean
Okay.
I just wanted to cover whatever was of interest.
Okay.
There is a way. I don't think you can do. And and there's another thing about these classes. You don't want those things to be overrideable or make it. Don't want to make a subclass of it. Make the final. Yeah, because it actually makes it. It does dynamic. I think it does static dispatch. It's final.
What is static dispatch?
It doesn't run. Basically, there's two kinds of dispatches Swift does. Dynamic, basically inheritance. If it's final, you can't inherit
Right.
its properties. So less overhead.
When you say dispatch, you mean like calling that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it's set.
Right.
But the thing is, internally, Swift has like these virtual, like these like function pointer B tables, similar to C++, in which it does all that dynamic dispatching. But if you make it final, it's static. Because internally it's like C++, and speaking, you're working with C, right? Okay. Swift has some nice little unsafe pointer methods that allows it to interact with C pointers. In fact, Swift pointers can decay nicely to C pointers internally.
Yeah, I saw it. I was reading a little bit on that over the weekend. It has like 7 classes.
Yeah.
So it uses like a class to like actually
I know
manage
there's
pointers.
okay, I know there's okay. It's unsafe. But of course, thank God they put unsafe. Let you know. Yeah, good enough. Unsafe is either regular type pointers or raw pointers. Raw pointers in
We're talking about C or Swift now?
C
Okay.
and Swift. Okay. Unsafe raw pointers are equivalent to void pointers in C, C++.
Okay.
Okay. Type pointers, like if they say undefined int, it's a type pointer. So if you want to work with raw memory, let's say Swift, and you want to access, because most C pointers tend to use void, so you have to use the raw pointer, untyped bytes.
Okay. So real quick, yeah, I actually was able to just put the initializer as private.
I think you just say private in it.
Yeah, I was actually on the wrong file. So yeah, just by doing this private init right here.
Okay, it prevents it from being instantiated.
Yeah.
In any other file.
Yeah.
I see. So that makes a lot more sense. So the from that I'm working on, it's kind of the same thing, but I'm just instantiating like outside as a global variable.
Yeah.
And that I can see how, I don't know if that's
yeah. So
bad or no, but it allows me to access it. So it gives me the same functionality as a.
right. So like I was saying, like I didn't really need to use it in this particular instance. In my mind at first, when I was kind of thinking about the architecture of this app, I was going to have multiple view controllers, and each view controller would use the same background image.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, okay, then I'm going to want a singleton reference to which background image I'm going to use. But then things changed, and I used a base view controller. So now it's only one view controller accessing this manager. So I really didn't need the singleton at that time, but I just left it in.
Okay.
But I can give you a concrete example of where I think it is applicable. I have two different picker views here, right? I have
And you
one
want to use that same resource,
Yeah.
then use a singleton right
Exactly,
there.
exactly, right. So right, two picker views, but they use the same data source. So what I have here is a era data manager, and this this also uses a singleton instance where it's going to load the JSON data into this class object, and both picker views from two different view controllers are going to access this one singleton class
To get it.
to get the data
from it.
Yeah, to get
Right.
the error data. Yeah. Yeah. So this would be, I guess, a concrete example of when it could be actually used, where it's actually helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So what was your question about what kind of error you were getting?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll let Leo finish up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank you, Jay.
I think yeah, that's just about. I mean, I have a whole bunch more stuff to look at, but it's going to take way too long. If there are any last questions, I can answer it.
I can definitely ask afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just want to like stream like for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I guess then that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's on the stream?
So what was your question specifically, Dave?
Okay, let me just close on this. Where's my mouse? Here it is.